talk a lot about tightness on this channel. We talk about editing, we talk about gridding, and about using technology to make modern metal sound perfect. But there is a massive difference between computer tight and the kind of tightness that's so devastatingly heavy that it changes the course of music history. If you listen to almost any band from 30 years ago with modern ears, they're going to sound loose. They sound like a product of their time. But not Pantera. They defy that mold. Today I'm going to react to Pantera's legendary Monsters of Rock show from 1991 in Moscow. And this is way more than just a concert. It's a history lesson on what true power sounds like before Pro Tools took over the world. For those who don't know me, I'm the CEO of URM Academy. I've been a producer and a guitarist in my band Doth since 1999 and have been playing way longer than that. And at URM, we teach producers how to make records that sound massive. But you can't produce greatness if you don't recognize what it looks like at the source. Now about this show, context is everything here. This show happened right after the Soviet Union collapse. The Berlin Wall had just fallen. The atmosphere in Russia was incredibly unstable. You had the Russian military there trying to keep a crowd of nearly 1 million people in line. It was tense, it was dangerous, and frankly, the show almost didn't happen. I actually got to see Pantera once in around, I think, the year 2000, and I'm super grateful for that. And even though that was towards the end of that era for the band, I'm still really thankful I got to see Vinnie Paul and Dimebag playing in front of me. I mean, they're legendary for a reason. If you want to hear for yourself, check out any of the isolated guitar tracks from Vulgar Display of Power. Dimebag was insanely tight. And I don't mean tight for the 90s. I mean tight by today's standards. So as we watch this together, I don't want you to just fan out. I want you to pay attention to how they groove, how they lock together, and how they command a massive crowd when they don't even speak the same language. Let's get into it. Look at the size of that crowd. From what I understand, Pantera played at like maybe 10 or 11 in the morning. They opened it and, you know, Metallica and AC/DC went after them. But there were apparently between 750,000 to 1 million people there when Pantera played. It went up to 1.5 million later, but you can't imagine what it's like to play in front of that many people. Crazy. So Phil's already getting the crowd participation happening before they even really start playing the song. He's already telling them what to do, and they're already responding. So being a frontman from the get-go. So tight. Sounds like the record. And when we're watching this, try to pay attention to Dimebag's picking hand. He uses a lot of upstrokes where a lot of people would use downstrokes. And I think that's one of the secrets to how he sounds the way he does. It's like really good use of upstrokes. Anybody who's watching this who has played live in a band where you have to headbang knows that you're playing drops like at least 30%. I mean, there's a very big difference between having to do a cardio workout where you're giving yourself brain damage at the same time as playing something technical. There's a big difference between that and sitting in your room or at a studio in a comfortable position with air conditioning on and playing guitar. Two completely different things. You have adrenaline running through you, which already diminishes your motor skills. And then you're actually just trying to move while keeping precise with your hands. And that is a major challenge. And so I want you to pay attention to just how tight the riffs are, even with how much he's moving around. He makes it look easy, but it's not easy. Taking over your entire country. I'm sure you all know this song, but the lyrics are, we're taking over this town. Notice with the drums, notice how in the pocket Vinnie Paul is the whole time. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say probably was not playing to a click. That really didn't become standard practice till way later. I am almost positive that it's just his timing. But listen to how fucking solid that is, and always in the pocket. It doesn't just sound like some gritted drums. It's right in time, but it's got that swagger, it's got that feel, and it's just solid as fuck. So you saw the soldiers walking. Apparently there were like 100,000 soldiers at the show who were meant to keep the peace. This is the first time that a show like this took place over there. And apparently, from what I understand, there was a coup happening, and one of the demands from the students who were behind the coup was, we want to have a metal show. This is what I've heard, and this is that show. But the government still showed up in force to keep it together because they didn't know what to expect. So it's interesting when you see footage of the soldiers and the cops, it seems like half of them don't know what the fuck is going on, and the other half are just stoked to be there. That's just wild to see at a show. Like, that's just craziness. We've all been to shows where there's security, right? At the barricade. You don't normally see security with a baton or a nightstick. Some places take care of business differently. One thing that I've always thought was interesting about Pantera is that in most of their songs, there's no rhythm guitar during the solos. I know that in like This Love, for instance, there is a rhythm guitar, but overall, I'd say the majority of the solos, the rhythm guitar drops out and it's just bass drums and a solo. And normally when a band does that, it sounds like shit. But for some reason, when they do it, it really, really works. And I have not figured out what it is about Pantera that makes it work. Maybe it's because his solos are so damn good. That could be part of it. Like, he's actually telling a story with his solos as opposed to just shredding. Fucking drooling on the guitar. Love it. That was studio tight. Like, I've heard so many guitar players who have solos that are this level of technicality or higher, who when they play live, it just doesn't lock in quite like that. That was good enough to be a studio take. And just pay attention when he goes into the fast passage to just how percussive the picking is. It's crazy. Perfectly percussive, perfectly in the pocket, perfectly clear. I mean, he's a fucking animal. Proof that he's human, though, I heard a small mistake. And I actually like hearing small mistakes in these shows because that's how you know that you're hearing a real live performance. Now, from 1991, I don't think that was as much of a big deal, but I don't think that people were punching in as many takes on live performances. But as we get closer to the modern era and you hear a live recording, you can't always trust that you're actually hearing a live recording. So when they leave in a little mistake, you'll hear it when he gets to the bottom of one of the riffs that it just makes some guitar noise. It's not some huge mistake, but it's proof that a human played it. Right there. Do you hear that? Da-da noise. All right. This is one of the hardest things about playing live. If you notice, when he jumps up to the high part, he plays that descending run lower the other few times, and then he plays it once. I think that's an octave higher, and that's much more of a position shift. That's a much bigger jump, and that's one of the hardest things to do live. If playing live is already harder, then having to introduce things like position shifts and multi-string jumps, that's way tougher. I know that there's different ways to practice that, but one thing that a lot of people do is they alter the transition a little bit to give them some way to connect, to get between the low part to the higher part. So it'll be different than what's on the record, but they have to do it because the likelihood of actually making the jump and landing it perfectly, it's just the odds are against you. Notice there was that little something right before he hit the high octave.
I want to say,
So even though this is a Phil talking part, he's already getting the crowd control happening again. So not that they lost the crowd at all, but he is re-upping their dominance over the crowd.
This is a song of unity. This is one called Primal Concrete Slave.
Yeah, not cool. I wonder what that guy did to deserve getting hit with the nightstick. I mean, to be fair, it doesn't look like he got slammed really hard with it, but still, that doesn't feel good. And I wonder if the guy was causing trouble or just headbanging or something. He hit him twice. Not cool. Those are things you just don't experience over here. That's very, very foreign to see. Again, with the tightness, they sound like a fucking machine. This is a very interesting drum beat. I don't know if you've noticed, but he's barely hitting the snare. It's heavy as fuck, but you would think that there would be like some sort of a snare in there to create the beat, but it's this weird tom double bass thing, and it works. Vinnie Paul's one of those drummers that gets all the respect in the world, and then also not close to enough respect for how great and innovative he was. Now the snare comes in with the ride beat, and listen to how much heavier it is after that really, really chaotic intro. So it's like chaos, 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 building, tension, 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 release into that halftime ride beat. You know, that's songwriting perfection. I just want to point out again just how in the pocket Dimebag was with Vinnie. And that's the kind of riff where it's very notey and it's hard to have a pocket, but somehow they still make it groove. And that's only possible because these two grew up together and spent so many hours and hours and hours just basically spiritually linking up as musicians that they seem to operate as a whole. It's kind of crazy. So this song has already 2 build-ups and releases. So, you know, there's the whole first part of the song, which has that really interesting tom and kick beat into the halftime part that we just talked about. And then we have a traditional, you know, rock and roll build-up that dun 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 into another groove riff. They're really, really good at building the tension and then releasing it to something that slams. Notice also that kick drum pattern, which is basically like a gallop of some sort. I feel like nowadays the move would be to match the guitar picking with a kick pattern like that. That's almost what I think 99% of bands would do. It's really interesting to hear a pattern like that with a riff that is not synced up with it, and that makes it much more unique, I think. Also, got to say, Dimebag was the master of dive bombs and harmonics and just cool-ass guitar tricks. So, I don't know if you who are watching have taken an international trip before across the world, but those who have will know that it's very discombobulating. Like if you go from the US to Asia or Australia, the first few days are going to be wildly weird in terms of how you feel. Like you're just all turned around. And from what I understand, Pantera arrived the night right before this show, super late, basically traveled for about 30 hours, took a train eventually for many, many hours, got there in the middle of the night, slept 2 hours, got to the venue at 8 a.m. and then played at like 10 or 11 and still brought this kind of energy. Like think about what that means. Is that guy pissed or excited? I can't tell.
Kids all feel the same world over. Everybody has aggressions, and this form of music is the ultimate way to let out any bit of steam.
I agree. That's why metalheads tend to be very chill people, even though if you're into metal, there's probably something in you that drives you towards music that has that kind of aggression, sometimes that kind of darkness. But metalheads tend to be chill, and I think it's because of this release. All right, see what I mean? That you can see it much more in Metallica's set, but you see there was a soldier that was stoked to be there. So much to my surprise, what I think is the best song of the day wasn't in that video clip, so I had to take a second and find it. But this clip of Domination, I mean, this is one of the most influential clips in my life, and it really is a legendary clip.
This is called Domination!
Look at that crowd. They fucking love it. Again, notice how fucking solid Vinnie Paul is. And listen to how he changes the beat and where the snare placement is and just how heavy it is, but also just how consistent that double kick is. I know it's not the fastest double kick in the world, but actually these types of tempos, from what drummers tell me, Krim calls it the asshole tempo, because it's right where you have to use much more muscle than to like use the swivel technique or I guess twitch. There's a tempo range that's faster than this where it actually gets easier to play. So it's easier to play slower, easier to play faster, but right in the middle is where you need the most control. And that's kind of where Vinnie Paul lives with his tempo. So it's really, really impressive to play double bass at these tempos this consistently. You heard a little flub on Dimebag's part, which is fine, but this is what I'm talking about. When you're moving around like that, keeping your hands in perfect position, it's just tough to do. So when you hear a band live that's as perfect as their record, you should always question it. Moving around like that and playing perfectly, it just doesn't go hand in hand. So much space in that riff for Phil to shine as a vocalist. So well done, and especially because the beginning of this song is so intense, and there's so much double kick going on. There's like so much, and I know that a lot of bands would have just kept it going when the vocals came in, but not Pantera. What they did was build it up, build it up, build it up, and then release into this kind of breakdown-y kind of riff, but with a ton of space, basically giving the stage to Phil. Really, really well arranged. That transition into the faster part is just so smooth. One of the hardest things to get right when you're learning a song is transitions and feel changes. And that's one of the things that you notice is so different between the best bands and the bands that aren't quite on that level, is when a band like this changes feel, it's just locked and smooth and perfect. Notice Vinnie Paul did a fill right there where there were no vocals and nothing else, just Vinnie Paul by himself. And that's a space where I think a lot of drummers would have taken the chance to show off, but he didn't. He just played something that was badass and kept the groove going, and it was perfect for the song. I love drummers who are more interested in serving the song than serving their ego. This is one of the first solos I ever learned. I think this is one of the first solos that a lot of people ever learned. But I love how he sets it up. He like has this intro little melody chord progression that happens before the solo. It doesn't just kick in right into it. It builds a little bit of tension and releases into the solo. Really, really cool. He fucking killed that solo. I don't know about all of you, but for me, the toughest part about something like that is not the fast stuff. It's actually the super high bends with the vibrato. That's the part that fucks me up the most. But let's listen to the transition into this devastating riff. Notice how they brought the tempo down into that riff just to give it so much more space and weight. And after such a busy solo, having something that's just that simple and devastating, it's just great writing. We all know that it's super common in lots of deathcore, at least, and many modern bands, to have a super brutal song and then the ending breakdown that's just super heavy. Well, this is kind of where that came from. The idea of ending the song on something completely different that just brings the house down. It's an idea that honestly never gets old. It works even with music that's 30 plus years old, and it works nowadays. People love it. I love it. What's not to love? That is exactly what I'm talking about. Lots of times when you look at bands from the past, they were great for their era, but their musicianship feels kind of loose compared to the hyper-edited metal we're used to now. Pantera is one of the few exceptions. They're kind of like Meshuggah in that way. They were amazing back then, and if you were to drop this lineup into the scene today, they wouldn't have lost a step. Their performance holds up against anything modern. What you just saw is the result of 4 guys who were undeniable masters of their instruments. Dimebag wasn't relying on editing to sound that tight. That groove, that feel, that's the human element that no plugin can emulate. So if you're a producer or musician sitting in your studio trying to get better, you should look at stuff like this. This is the bar. Don't rely on your grid to create the power. Use your tools to capture it. I want to know from you guys in the comments, are there any modern bands who can command a crowd of about 1 million people like Pantera did back in 1991? Or are those days over and done with? Let me know. Thank you for watching. As always, like, share, subscribe. See you next time.